Once upon a time, Gabriel Wyner signed up for intermediate French classes. And the problem was, he didn't speak a word of French. The good news is he had 3 months to prepare before the classes started. And so he was like, okay, I have an hour a day to study. What am I going to do to, not look like an idiot? And he studied and he studied and he studied. And he came up with a way to study that was based on learning science and the way people actually learn languages. And by the time the 3 months were up, they tested him and they were like, wow, your French is really good. We're going to put you in the advanced class. Wyner is an opera singer who studies languages for fun. He speaks English, Spanish, French, German, Russian. He was learning Hungarian while he was writing his book, Fluent Forever, which is all about his methods for learning languages really quickly and learning languages well, so that you don't forget them. These methods aren't that hard to do. You don't have to spend a whole bunch of money or get a bunch of specialized equipment. You just need flashcards and some time to study. So how do you learn a language super fast? Well, this is the process. When most people learn a language, they start by learning common phrases or words, or they start by learning the grammar, and Gabriel Wyner says that this is backwards. What you want to start with is learning the sounds of your language. So what are the sounds of a language? Well, think about how, for example, Japanese people have a tough time saying the letter L in English because in Japanese, they don't distinguish between those two sounds. When Japanese people learn English, they actually hear the letter R and the letter L as the same sound. And they have to train themselves to tell the difference.
Why don't you please just speak English? Maybe I can understand you.
There are like 100-something different consonant sounds that the human mouth can make, and most languages only use like 30 to 40 of them, and there's very little overlap, right? Like there's not like one universal set of consonant sounds that every language uses. So when you learn a new language, you have to learn a whole new set of consonants. For example, if you're a native English speaker and you're learning Spanish, you have to learn to say the letter R more like a R instead of a R. Or if you're learning French, you have to say more like a H. So how come you have to learn sound first? Why can't you just learn to speak things in more of an Englishy tongue and then figure out the sounds later? Well, it's because it's a lot harder to figure out the sounds later than it is to figure out the sounds right from the beginning. Written language and spoken language are two completely separate things, and if you don't have them kind of synced up in your brain, if you don't have a way of translating one to the other pretty quickly, then your language, you're just not going to speak it as fluently. Wyner gives the example, he was talking in this French group with some fellow French speakers, and they were talking about the philosopher Descartes. And one guy raises his hand, he's like, well, if you like Descartes, I've never heard of this Descartes guy before, but you know who you'd really love is this philosopher called Descartes. Once you've got sound pretty much figured out, it's time to start learning words, and the best way to do that is to just memorize as many of them as quickly as possible. And the best way to do that is with spaced repetition. Spaced repetition is basically when you look at a flashcard and you quiz yourself on it, and then you put it aside, and then you pick it up again later, maybe the next day, or maybe a little in a few minutes, and you quiz yourself on it again, and you do this over and over again until you can get it pretty much every time. The brain remembers stuff a lot better this way than if you just drill yourself over and over again on the same word, right? Like if you say la tortuga over and over again, if you're trying to learn the Spanish word for turtle, then you're going to forget it the next day. But if you do la tortuga every now and then you'll remember it when you need it. Wyner says you want to use a system where you keep your flashcards in separate compartments based on how well you remember them. And then you quiz yourself on them periodically, and when you remember a flashcard, you move it up a compartment, and then when you don't remember a flashcard, you move it to the first compartment. Wyner also has a couple of hacks for remembering stuff better. One of them is make personal connections with the words that you're learning, right? So for example, when he learns the word for cat, he puts the name of his cat on his flashcards. And second, he says you want to associate words with really, 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 really intense memories. So for example, if you need to learn the word for ice, you can picture ice exploding. Or if you need to learn the word for, cat, you can picture two cats having sex, right? The human brain remembers sex, violence, and humor really, really well, so you want to make funny, sexual, and violent memories. You don't want to use other people's flashcards, you want to make your own flashcards. And the reason for that is because the act of making the flashcards is language learning in and of itself. You're going to remember the flashcards better if you make them. And then finally, you don't want any English anywhere on your flashcards. You want to only think in the target language. What you want to do is you want to have your word on one side, and then maybe some things that you associate with that word, and then you want to have a picture on the back. So if you're making a flashcard of a cat, you can say the word for cat on one side and then a picture of a cat on the back. Or if you're doing something more abstract like the economy, you put the word on one side and then you put like a stock market chart on the other side. The goal is to practice thinking in your target language, not translating from English, which is what you're going to need to do to actually have a conversation in your target language, which is the goal. So thanks so much for checking out Theo's Book Club. If you're new around here, my name's Theo. I make short videos like this one going over the big ideas in the books that I read so that you can learn everything I learned, and so you can say, do I want to read this book for myself? If you like this video, I hope you'll hit the thumbs up button. It's right down there. That tells YouTube, hey, this is a good video. We like it. It's good for the algorithm. It helps me a lot. I would appreciate it. If you want more of these book review videos to pop up in your feed instead of cat videos or whatever you normally watch, you can hit the subscribe button. If you like videos about learning stuff really fast, you can check out the video I made about Scott Young's book, Ultra Learning. He taught himself 4 languages in the span of a year. He also taught himself the entire MIT computer science curriculum in a year. He wrote a book about all of that called Ultra Learning, and you can check it out right here. And until next time, hasta luego, and have a great day.